Hey everybody, I'm pretty sure I'm live, so I'm not gonna sit here and just stare at the camera and look stupid again. Um, and I'll just, talk about nothing really right now while I'm waiting for it to for sure be live. Okay, no, I'm for sure live. All right, hey everybody. I wanted to go live today to talk about a really important part of the sales process, which is the questions that you ask. And the reason the questions you ask are so crucial is because um, that's the information you have to identify if, like, understand what the person's problem is and identify if you can actually help them. And if so, how you could help them. And all of those answers and all that information is crucial to whether you can actually close the sale. So, a person's attention span, they don't have a ton of patience to just be like interrogated and asked question after question. So, you really need to be careful and wise with the ones that you choose. So, a lot of the generic scripts out there are like asking questions like, well, what is your life goal and dream? And where do you see yourself in 12 months? And if you achieve this in 12 months, how will you feel? And if you don't achieve it in 12 months, how will you feel? And those answers are really transparent. And like it's obviously manipulative. It's like, of course, I'm gonna feel terrible if I don't achieve this, and I'm gonna feel great if I do. So it's not really giving you the information that you need to like find out what the person's issue is and if you can help it. So the other thing is, you definitely want to think about the questions that uncover the information. So a lot of times, what helps people a lot is to think about the first meeting you have with someone when they are your client. And when they're already your client, you're actually asking questions to understand what's going on and why and how it happened, right? Because then you're going to come up with a strategy to solve it. So treat it like it's your first meeting with your client and ask the same kinds of questions. Hey, boss A, ask the same kind of questions you would if you were already working with them, but just don't tell them the strategy like you would on the first meeting. So that's the best place to start. The second thing is that there's no way that you can predict all of the questions that you want to ask or that you would want to know. So you have to be genuinely curious and ask questions based on their answers that you haven't predetermined already. So, like yesterday, I was helping a client think about, you know, because if you don't ask those questions, you'll miss a lot of valid, important information. So, like, to compare it to, let's say you're convincing your friend to go to a concert with you, right? To a show. And you're like, oh, please come to this concert. And your friend's like, ugh, I hate that venue. And you're like, well, why? Of course, you ask why, right? And they say, oh, because it's always so crowded. And instead of just accepting that at face value, like you might with a sales conversation, you're like, well, what day did you go? And they're like, well, I went on a Saturday. And it's like, well, this is a Tuesday. It's going to be a lot less crowded. Then you have the information you need to have that conversation about what's really going on and if it's really an issue and if it's not, or how you can help it. But if you hadn't dug naturally, you wouldn't have figured that out. So it's the same thing on a sales conversation. Like when you ask someone, have you tried to solve this before? Okay, what did you do? Okay, that sounds a little weird. Like when you tell me about that experience, like what exactly about it? Like, did you try this or that? Were you pre-qualifying them? Or were you just accepting calls with anybody? So you just can't predict all the questions that you're going to ask everybody. They're going to be different and they're going to be custom for the person you're talking to. You're not going to ask every person the exact same set of questions, but there are definitely some that you want to make sure that you know. And that is, what have you done to solve this before? What was your experience? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And what is your goal moving forward with me? Those are the baseline questions you want to make sure that you know. And those give you actual real information where you're understanding somebody's problem. And as long as you're coming from a genuinely helpful place, trying to understand them, it's going to go well. If it feels like you're coming from some kind of manipulative place, like, where will you be in 12 months if you solve this? And where will you be if you don't? Then they're not going to want to answer. You're not trying to actually get to understand me. You don't care, and your expertise isn't shining through. Because when you are an expert in what you're doing and an expert in how you can help people solve things, your questions will show that, will reveal that. They'll ask questions that you'll ask questions that they haven't even asked themselves. They'll be like, that's a great question. Wow, this person must really know what they're talking about. So I hope this makes sense, you guys. Be genuinely curious, come from a genuinely helpful place where you're really trying to understand, and put out of your mind that you're trying to like sell them or position your product a certain way. You just want to uncover the information specific to their situation and like why they feel a certain way about this, why they have these preconceived notions that might be negative or positive about something that they made a decision about in the past, etc. Those kinds of things. So although it's not possible to predict all the questions, you definitely want to write out the ones that are crucial for you to know, kind of like those 4 that I laid out. Those usually apply to absolutely everything. And then just prepare yourself to genuinely dig after that like you would with anybody else that you were talking to. Don't like get distracted by thinking of how you can overcome their answer. Instead, think about how you can understand their answer even more. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday and weekend. And I think I'm going to have my first time at home without Lucy and my husband, which I'm, obviously going to miss him, but I'm kind of excited about too, because I'm just going to like sleep. So I hope you all have great plans too. And I'll see you next week.